So we have a ton more work to do on this RX7 that we are rebuilding from pretty much the frame up at this point, fixing and refinishing everything that we possibly can. So I'd like to start with some brake lines today. We have a Chase Bays brake booster delete in this car, and it took me a while to figure out how the hell this brake line setup goes in. I have finally figured it out. Once we get these lines refinished, I'll show you guys, but I was so confused when I took these brake lines out of the box trying to figure out where the hell they went. So with these, I think I'm gonna grab my engine crane over there, hang up these brake lines, and just spray them with a rubberized coating. Let them cure, and then we can get them back in the car. That's gonna be all the hard lines that go on the front and the rear, and then the one long one that comes from the front of the car to the back of the car. I'm actually confused with this line here. It just doesn't make sense because there's a turbo and a downpipe that go here, and there's a lot of heat that go here right by this brake line, which is honestly a really bad design if that is how that's supposed to go. But it would come down, go into our brake line bracket there, come up to the brake bias, and then we've got the other one here that goes to the other front. But this one makes sense. It would come out, go right down through there, come out, and look, it's right in our brake line bracket right there. This small one makes sense because the hard line will come up and just bolt straight to that, or just thread into that. But this one that just goes over there just does not make sense to me. I stumbled across a video from Chase Bays, and that is actually how they have the line routed. And to be honest, I just think that looks like we're just being blatantly honest. That just looks lazy and like crap. It's not long enough to pull up onto. If I could tuck it up under that rear cowl, that would be sweet, but it doesn't unfortunately work that way. So I will probably buy a brake line bender and just make a brake line to go up and over that, and then come down into our wheel well there. That one I'm totally fine with. I don't have a problem with that one. It looks good, it's out of the way, and it's tucked down there nicely, but that one just does not do it for me. I actually need to pull the dash back out real quick because there's a ground that I need to put in here. I just actually need to scoot it forward about right there, so that way I can put these grounds on up here. After getting the dash cleaned up, I wanted to toss the pedals back in, but I forgot how rusty they were, so I went and dropped those off with Ben to get refinished. And while I was up there, he just happened to have a supply of parts for us ready to go back on the car. So we got a nice mix of headlight brackets, supports, braces, whole bunch of good stuff. So I figured we'd start off just by throwing the braces on. I believe these are the factory toe points. I could be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure they're the factory toe points if the car needed to be towed. I got our hood latches back. We opted to use a color from Columbia Coatings called Blackjack, and it's like this nice satin black that still has somewhat of like a very minor glossy finish to it. I think it really looks really good and complements the Aspen white pretty well. Now, since we're doing all this other stuff and we got all these little brackets back, some of the ones I was waiting on were for the main brake line that goes from the front of the car to the back of the car, and that bolts up underneath of those aluminum under trays that I had. So figured we'd toss the long brake line in, and while I was in there, we might as well put the feed line in from the fuel filter up to the engine bay. Really anything I can get off the rack and onto the car is what the goal is here. Not gonna lie, what I just did was mildly confusing. So I figured since I'm putting in the brake line for the rear, which goes right here, I might as well toss in the feed line from the fuel filter up to the engine bay. And that was easy, but the brake line was the confusing part. Trying to get all of this figured out and wedged in underneath of this panel here was, you know, a little bit frustrating, but it is in, and we do have the rear brake line hooked up to our master up there. We are gonna have to build a bracket for it just to keep it a little bit secure, but, you know, actually we could just go right there. Hang on. So what I can do is actually secure the brake line down there with an Adele clamp, which is just like a P-clip just to keep it secure. But we have the brake bias coming off to our hard line going to the back. We've got this long line that I'm still not a huge fan of going over to the passenger caliper side. And then over here on the driver's side, we have our brake line coming out and down in there. I think I'm gonna start trimming this off for everything that we don't need. So let me actually go through my old videos and rewatch what some of this stuff does. I think the only thing that we need off of here is actually a speed sensor wire, which I don't even know which one of these it is. But I think the only thing we need off this is speed sensor. Gnostics. I only gave Ben one of the headlight brackets to powder coat for us because I wanted one of them as a reference to figure out how to put these things back together. The pop-up headlights are a little bit confusing if you've never taken them apart, but once you've taken one apart and put one back together, it's pretty easy how they work. You guys can see the difference between the one we refinished and the one that we did not. This car had been resprayed at some point and the old paint was just never put on there too well. As I continued to dig through more bins, I found our e-brake and I figured I'd toss that in. For the e-brake cables themselves, I do think I'm going to replace them. I tried cleaning them up and they just were not coming out to a crisp look, I guess I should say. They were just too far gone and too rusty. Found the accelerator pedal and decided to toss that in. With it being plastic, obviously there is no room for it to rust just because it physically can't. I wanted to prep the rear of the car before we put the fuel tank in. Really anything that I could get in the backside where the fuel tank is gonna go, I just wanted to get knocked out, which is gonna include the rear sway bar. Easy enough to bolt in. It's just 4 12mm bolts. We did refinish the sway bar in a color called Alien Silver. All of the sway bars were this red color that we had gotten from Racing Beat. And while they don't look bad, it's just not for us. So with the fuel tank, I didn't want to go to the extent of stripping off all of the old rubber coating just because A, it's going to be a huge pain in the butt, but B, it honestly really didn't need much. So I sprayed a whole bunch of engine degreaser all over this thing, grabbed one of these detailing wheel things, tossed it on a drill and just went to town. And all that's really doing is breaking up a lot of the loose dirt that's embedded into the original rubber coating that's on that fuel tank. After a quick pressure wash, it all pretty much just comes right off. For refinishing, I found some of this like spray-on rubber undercoating body stuff at the auto parts store, and it seemed to do the trick pretty well. I was a little bit concerned when I first started spraying because, as you guys can see, it kind of looked brown at first when coming out of the can, but as it dried, it did turn to that factory black rubber undercoating look, and it cleaned up relatively nicely. I did about 2 coats on there and got it ready to go in. We let it sit overnight also because that rubberized coating does take a little time to cure. Now, trying to install the fuel tank by myself was, you know, you can't really just pick it up, put the straps on it and bolt it in by yourself. So I grabbed a little stool that I had chilling around the shop, and I found it easiest just to set the fuel tank on the stool and then bring the car down onto the fuel tank. There is some alignment that you got to do going back and forth between moving the fuel tank around a little bit, dropping the car down, but it made it a lot easier than trying to pick it up and put it in myself, because that just obviously was not going to happen. already had one headlight done and we have the other one to reference, I wanted to go ahead and get this one knocked out. So I wanted to just pull it apart, get all the little metal brackets out. There's really only 2 metal brackets inside of these headlight buckets that really need to be cleaned up. Now, unfortunate for us, but fortunate for Ben, Ben was busy this day, so he couldn't powder coat or sandblast any of the little stuff that I had sitting around the shop. He was available on Monday, but I really didn't want to wait, and I wanted to get this other headlight and a couple other small things in the car. But nonetheless, we are an independent white woman who don't need no man. I recently got this little Eastwood sandblaster so that way we could sandblast a lot of these smaller pieces ourselves. If it'll fit in the sandblaster, we can do it. You guys will see that I have that oven there, and a lot of people always ask why I have an oven in the shop. And it's typically for powder coating or doing headlights or taillights or things, miscellaneous things that we need an oven for. So preheated the oven up to 400 degrees, got all of the parts hung up on these little oven racks. I use these little hooks. Between little hooks and steel wire, I seem to have found the best results for just hanging stuff up so that way it doesn't slide around everywhere in the oven. Now with powder coating, I tend to preheat my parts, and that's just going to help off-gas them if there's any oils or greases that are stuck inside of the parts. The heat from the oven will help bring that out, and it'll also get the parts up to temperature, so that way when we go to spray our powder, it will start laying on the parts a lot cleaner and it'll start to adhere a little bit better. While the powder coat gun that we have, which is Eastwood by the way, and if you guys are looking at any DIY stuff for your own place, feel free to use our discount code Smeedia10 over at Eastwood and save 10% off their site. But when using the powder coat gun, as you guys can see, once the parts are heated up, the powder tends to melt, I guess I could say, to the parts a bit better. It uses electricity to help get the powder to stick to them, but when the parts are already preheated, it tends to work a lot better. We're gonna pop those in for 15 minutes at 375 degrees, pull them out, and we'll let them cool for probably about an hour or so, just to let the powder harden up a little bit. I've noticed in the past if you go to handle freshly powder coated parts that are still a little bit warm, you can damage the powder coat, and then you're gonna have to re-sandblast it, re-powder coat it, and it's just a lengthy process. So just let your parts cool, then you can start handling them, so that way we can actually put our headlights back together and get them both in the car. Needed to figure out where all of these electrical connectors actually went and what all receptacles they plugged into, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember. When I first got the car, they were all torn apart, but eventually after playing with where things may go, they finally all, for the most part, lined up. Which means I can finally get the dash in permanently, get it bolted in, get it ready to go, so that way I don't have this thing floating around the shop anymore. As many parts as I can get back onto the RX-7, the better, especially when it comes to us doing more painting here shortly for all the body panels. As much room as I can get back is gonna be golden for us. So got this thing all bolted in, fits beautifully. Our freshly Cerakoted steering rack, it's not even the steering rack, steering column can go back in as well. I'm gonna be honest, dude, seeing all of these like freshly coated parts going back in this car just warms my soul, because this thing was crusty and nasty when I had taken it apart. I did not realize just how much rust was hiding behind that dash on pretty much anything that was steel, but we got to remember this car is also 30 years old, so a lot of those old metal parts are just going to be rusty, and thankfully they can be saved by recoating them and refinishing them versus having to buy all new stuff. As much as I'd love to replace every single part on this car with a factory new one, unfortunately it's just not financially feasible, I think, for pretty much everyone out there. A lot has happened, but we have our dash and our steering column in. I did have the steering column refinished in a black Cerakote, so that way it would look factory fresh and new again. Coming out of that to the engine bay, I also went ahead and re-Cerakoted the bottom portion that connects up to the rack. I cleaned out the boot the best I could, but there's just some embedded dirt in there that does not want to come out, and I don't think I can just buy that boot regardless. It's still a good boot. I tossed our engine harness in and just kind of tucked it off to the side for right now because I just want to get it out of the bins. It needs to stay in the car anyways, and since I was doing all of the dash wiring, it made more sense just to plug it in and get it all down here, and then we'll tuck all that up where it needs to go after we have the car running, so that way if we need to reassign some wires or add some stuff in, we definitely can. I will say that doing everything that we just did freed up so much more room in here that in the next video we can start on body work for the fenders, the hood, the bumpers, all that fun stuff. Get them primed this weekend, get them painted, get them on the car, and then at that point, once all of our body panels are off from the corner and back onto the car, we'll start on our engine and our transmission to get that in. Like I said, I've been going back and forth if I want to pull that engine apart. I don't think I'm going to. It doesn't make sense to. It's a good it's not factory, but it's a good rebuilt rotary that I already built. So it doesn't make much sense. The transmission, I'm not sure what I want to do with yet. I don't want to pull it apart piece by piece. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the transmission yet. We'll cross that bridge later. I know this video is a little bit different with a lot of voiceover in it, and that's just because I don't know where a lot of this stuff goes or how it goes. So it's taking me a while to figure out how to put it back in. So I hope the voiceover stuff doesn't bother you guys too much, or if you enjoy it, let me know and we can keep doing it in the future. But now that we have all the room, I'm ecstatic to get all these panels back on. We actually are not reusing the hatch. We are going to be doing a Cybon carbon hatch on the car. I am going to paint it white and then leave the bottom side exposed carbon. I think that'll look really good. I think it'll still present an OEM plus finish on it. It's just that one, I don't want to have to go to the trouble of welding up the holes and doing the body work with glass being right there. I would like to only have to call a glass guy out once to install our windshield, install that back glass on our new hatch after it's been painted and get it in. Our windshield shows up on Tuesday and then the hatch will show up at some point, but we can paint all of the other panels in preparation for the hatch to get here. But my goal to get the RX-7 done by the end of the month is still 100% in my eyes feasible. We just need to really get cracking on it like we have been the past 2 days, because I am starting a 2.5 RS STI swap for somebody at the beginning of July, and I want to get the shop cleared out as much as possible in preparation for his car to come in. And then as we're doing his STI swap and his RS, we're also going to be doing mine simultaneously. So we're going to be doing 2 RSTIs at the same time as soon as the RX-7 is done. I want to do it proper. I want to do it right. I'm not going to rush anything that that cannot be rushed, but I'm going to be heavily getting going on this to get it done throughout June to get it done for July. I also got in some really cool goodies for the RX-7. I got a Haltech can gauge for it because I do want to retain the OEM gauges to where I don't have to run an IC7 in the car. And on top of that, we got some of our wheel studs in. We have 10 more of them coming, some new control arms and some other stuff going on in the car. But with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you liked the video, if you're hyped to see the RX-7 come back to life, go to hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, but whatever color it may turn for you. The color of the day today is white for the RX-7. And if you're not subscribed to the channel and you want to be, I'll put it in one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet, but with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.